No, they okay. So Nigeria they rain. Now you let it come.
There are critical questions around mobility and migration in the West African sub-region that needs to be investigated. How does mobility and migration shape urban processes and everyday life across the West African sub-region? Who and what moves? How do mobility and migration impact culture and social identities? What are the constraints and enablers of mobility and migrations in the West African sub-region? Our focus will be on the urban cities of Lagos in Nigeria and Cotonou in Benin Republic.
From the 1970s, when the consciousness of integration came to ECOWAS, protocols that have been made till the recent times have always focused on one thing. Africa needs to be united. And that unity should set from the West African province.
I came here in 1990. Mo ti wá sí ìlú Nigeria ńsìn àti tó bí ọdún mẹ́rin.
I don't remember because you don't pass 30 years.
When migrants move, they move most of the time with their families, if they are females. But for the male ones, they normally move like that to work in their their new location, their new country, and then send monies back home to their family. But when females move like that, they move with their family members, and some of them that are not married, when they come to a new country, they tend to marry their fellow migrants.
I married two wives.
Two wives.
First one, Togo. Second one, Nigeria.
The time I said, now I take a meter. Because my husband, I see mine. Myself, I don't know say Nigeria, so I born before I couldn't say Nigeria.
A lot of the women migrants move for reasons of marriage. They move with their husbands. They are second generation migrants who are born in the cities their parents migrate to. And they also have to now deal with the challenges of living in a patriarchal society and living in a society that sees their place in it as ephemeral or as temporary or as itinerant.
The time I won't come with my friends, them come. As a place they don't come, I follow them come.
Ọkọ mi ló mú mi wá sí Nigeria.
Ẹ̀gbọ́n mi ló mú mi wá. So let me say like my mommy's sister. Is it my mommy's sister or my daddy's sister? She has some family and she brings to Nigeria.
The evidence from the field shows that the age category of 15 to 25 years are those who migrate the most. And they do this because of the perceived economic opportunities in the informal sectors, such as construction, quarry, the trade sector, that is the informal trade sector, which is the buying and selling, as it were.
So you have these young people who have few skills, limited skills, but have an aspiration to do better, and the allure of the city, beckons onto them, and so they have to move. And that is why we find that most of the migrants coming into African cities are young males who are just entering into adulthood. They come into the city and they have to struggle for survival. They have to hustle. They have to find a way of, making ends meet. And that is really where the issues are.
We see business long. So but somebody wants to be business one be dáadáa. I'm actually business. Boy, I want to say tailor ni o, boy bricklayer ni o, boy tiler ni o, boy anything. Iṣẹ́ one be dáadáa tó ń ṣe. So àwọn tó dẹ̀ wà ní Cotonou side. So àwọn tó wà ní Nigeria, wọ́n máa value iṣẹ́ wọn jù. Wọ́n máa value iṣẹ́ wọn because tí àwọn tó bá ti kọ́ṣẹ́ lóhùn, tó bá ti wá mú wá síbí, iṣẹ́ tó máa ń ṣe wọ́n máa ń ṣiṣẹ́ yẹn tó iṣẹ́ yẹn máa ń dá. Even èmi gan gbà tí mo wà ní Unilag, gbogbo àwọn structure tó wà ní Unilag yẹn, most of them tẹ́ bá ti rí àwọn tó ń ṣiṣẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ àwọn bíríkìlà àwọn labour àwọn ègún ni even wọn bá lọ sí àjàǹsìn Lẹ́kí most of them even wọn pẹ́ńtà most of them Kútọ̀nù ló ti máa ń wá. Gbà tí a marry mi mọ ibi kankan ní Nàìjíríà mi dẹ̀ mọ nǹkan tí wọ́n ń ṣe ní Nàìjíríà àwọn ló wá sọ fún mi pé iṣẹ́ wà ní Nàìjíríà òun ni mo tẹ̀lé wá sí Nàìjíríà.
The time I'm in Ghana, I'm a panabita. So at the same time panabita, I take and enter Nigeria here in 1990. And the time I enter here, very lucky I can't get a job. I did the job, but Nigeria work and Ghana work is not the same, so I leave the work. I started doing shoemaking. Till now, I still do shoemaking.
Àwọn Senegal yẹn àwọn náà ni tailor náà wọ́n lẹ́yìn báyìí kò sí Senegal tẹ́yìn tí ò ní ṣiṣẹ́ tailor náà wọ́n tẹ́fà fẹ́ ràn wọ́n Senegal lọ sí hôtel Babo ẹ ràn wọ́n Senegal ẹ ràn wọ́n Mali ẹ ràn wọ́n Guinea tailor náà wọ́n bá ń ṣe tailor wọ́n máa ń ṣe ṣọ́ọ̀bù wọ́n máa ń ta kíní tó wọ́n fi ń ṣe Guinea wọ́n fi ń ṣe Guinea bẹ́ẹ̀ tí wọ́n máa ń níṣẹ́ special àwọn Niger yẹn àwọn tẹ̀ tó á yapa àwọn Niger àwọn ní shoemaker Niger ní shoemaker Niger ní tatawẹ̀nù Niger ní ta òkìkà àwọn tí ń tẹ̀ràn Niger làwọn náà pa mẹ àwọn tí ń tẹ̀ràn special nínú wọn Nàìjíríà ni wọ́n jẹ́ àwọn ará Kano Kaduna.
Beyond economic factors, what we often call grass is greener on the other side, there are several people who on their own decide to travel for other reasons. These reasons include language extension. I know a family, we met them in the field, which decided to migrate to Benin Republic because of the need for the children and the family to be bilingual in French and English. This is beyond economics, okay? It is sociological. Sometimes also, it is cultural and psychological put together. You're all aware that as a result of Berlin Conference, polarization of Africa, many Yorubas are shifted to other parts of the country apart from Nigeria. In Benin Republic, in Togo, you find people of same cultural and linguistic affinity with the Yorubas in Nigeria. A lot of migrants will feel they will be more comfortable if they go back to these people and live among them.
While learning a language might be a reason for some migrants to move from Lagos to Cotonou, migrants from Cotonou to Lagos are faced with some linguistic barriers. However, it isn't a challenge that they find difficult to overcome.
Somebody wà ní Cotonou, on gbọ́ ẹni èdè bóyá Yorùbá bóyá English on gbọ́. But some mọ̀ pé àwọn family wọn wà níbí. Pé tó máa ti wá síbí iṣẹ́ wọn jọ máa sọ èdè kan náà àti business ẹja tó ń ṣe wọ́n máa ṣe. So tó máa ti kọjá border yẹn àwọn tó wà ní border tó máa ti kọjá border àwọn tó wà láfter border yẹn títí wá sí roundabout gbogbo wọn ègùn ni wọ́n. Most of them Nigeria ni wọ́n because àwọn míì wá jẹ́ pé ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ náà bí wọ́n sí àwọn ló kọ́kọ́ débẹ̀ yẹn.
Ta ló wá pàpà kọ́ yín ní èdè Yorùbá?
Mo gbọ́ ni ọ̀nà ọ̀gbà Haúsá ọkọ mi náà ó padà gbọ́. A jọ ń sọ mọ́ra wọn tí n bá sọ Haúsá ń gbà mí bí abọ́ ni tí ọmọ tí n bá lọ fọwọ́ mú báyìí á ti mọ̀ pé nǹkan tí mo sọ nìyẹn. Ìgbà tó ẹ̀ mọ̀ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí kọ́.
Bí ẹ̀yin ṣe wà ń sìn pé ẹ̀ ń bá wa ṣe lé ń bí tẹ́ bá ti ń sọ Yorùbá yẹn díẹ̀díẹ̀ àwa náà máa dá sí so bí a máa ṣe gbọ́ Yorùbá nìyẹn bóyá àwọn tó lọ tẹja níta àbí àwọn tó lọ sí mile 12 àbí ibì kan so bí a máa ṣe ń gbọ́ èdè yẹn ni.
Látara pé o fẹ́ ra nǹkan fẹ́ fi kankan má ti ń sọ láwọn àgbọ̀ díẹ̀díẹ̀. O lè sọ díẹ̀díẹ̀.
One of the constraints of mobility and migration in the West African sub-region, especially for these young people who migrate, is hostility in host communities.
Wọ́n wá káwa dúró síbi bẹ̀rẹ̀ àwọn tó wà lókè Nàìjíríà nígbà tó bá ti gbà wípé ká dúró síbi a máa dúró tí wọ́n bá gbà máa padà lọ sí ìlú wa.
ṣé ẹ sọ bí pé wàhálà wà ìpé àwọn èèyàn kan.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni wàhálà wà.
Irú wàhálà wo ni.
Ẹ ṣáà ń pé a kì í gbé bíbá yìí tẹ́lẹ̀, inú mi la máa ń gbé tẹ́lẹ̀. Bẹ́ẹ̀ tí ó ti kó wa ní pé ká wá sókè bíbá yìí. Láyé ká máa kọ́lé. Èmi gan sí mi ní ìyàrá. Mo lọ hajj yálà ni. Èmi àti ọkọ mi àjọ ń san owó ń bẹ̀. Bẹ́ẹ̀ sì tí a bá lówó mọ́, tí owó wa bá ti tán, a máa kó oúnjẹ a máa lọ sí ìlú wa.
So wọ́n lé yín kúrò lórí ọ̀nà.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni.
Generational migrants in Lagos from other West African cities living in waterfront communities are often displaced through forced evictions by the state government due to generational land rights issues. Other migrants residing in urban centers, either in Lagos or Cotonou, consciously devise ways to ensure they maintain law and order in their host community.
As they see me, they like me because I do my handwork. I'm not a thief. And anybody where they do your handwork, where you know the thief, you don't get a problem with police. You don't get problem with the army. Because you know you go thief. Immediately you go thief, you will get problem with soldier. You will get problem with the police. So as I do my handwork, I dey free.
Cannabis.
At the bus park in Cotonou, operated by Nigerian transporters, they bitterly complained about young Nigerian students getting involved in the sales of hard drugs. The Nigerian transporters have, however, taken it as their responsibility to track and stop this illegal trade by subjecting those young Nigerians to rigorous security checks, which have led to the recovery of several drug substances. Migration along the West Africa region comes with some acts of illegality, but it isn't all dark and gloomy. Moving also along that region are cultural exchange and integration in the areas of religion, cuisine, and entertainment.
Most of these migrants, when they move in, especially from Cotonou down to Lagos, they normally come with their deities. They come with their deities and they establish a kind of shrine in a particular enclave. So when you get to a particular enclave, like a migrant enclave in Lagos, you see all these deities where all these deities are being worshipped, not only by the migrants, but also by the locals or by the natives. And then in the other way around, there are a lot of churches, Nigerian churches in Cotonou. So when you get there, you see churches like Redeemed Christian Church of God, you see Winners Chapel, you see MFM, and you also see that most of the migrants from Lagos to Cotonou, they attend those churches. And then we also have locals and natives in Cotonou attending those churches. So when people move like that, when migrants move, they move with all those sociocultural practices, and they find it so difficult to drop them, when they are going, because it seems that they need all these factors to survive in their new location.
Togo ní ìlìṣà tí ó máa ń jó fún ní ọdọọdún. Ègùn náà pàápàá ó tún ní ìlìṣà tá máa ń jó ní ọdọọdún.
Religion gbogbo religion àwọn míì wọn àmì tó yẹ pé Ègùn ni wọ́n ń ṣe Muslim. Ní Friday nsìn wàá rí wọn máa lọ sí mosque. Christian wà nù wọn. Àwọn míì tradition ni wọ́n. Irú òrìṣà kan wà mí. Tọ́lá ti wálé ọlọ́ máa ń pè ní Sàpàtà. Ẹ̀yìn ó wà ní ibi. Ó ní iṣẹ́ tó ń ṣe. Tábà tí fẹ́ lọ báyìí sí, a tún rí òrìṣà kan bẹ́ẹ̀. Yẹn máa ń pè ní so tòfodún àbí.
Mátega, Agbo.
So all these orishas are from Benin?
Yes, and they are here.
They are here in your community?
They are here in our community. Different.
And the Yorubas are not?
Maybe I join you for the they come.
No, they are not against.
The time I did Ghana, I dey follow my culture. And as I come Nigeria, though I don't taste more. So Nigerian culture don't come sweet me. Because I still dey Nigeria. And every blessed day, I dey see the culture. So it don't enter me. So I still like them. I dey follow.
Nte akọ láti ọ̀dọ̀ wọn ló jẹ́ iṣẹ́ oúnjẹ ń jẹun tí wọ́n máa ń jẹ akọ́ yẹn lọ́wọ́ wọn nítorí ẹwà àwọn tí wọ́n máa ń sè yẹn ó máa ń yàtọ̀ sí tiwa àwa náà akọ́ yẹn lọ́wọ́ wọn bò kínní kan tún wà lọ́dọ̀ wọn máa ń pè ní lúkọ ni wọ́n máa ń pè wọ́n máa ń fi ẹja díndín jẹ kọ́mú àtúnkọ́ yẹn lọ́wọ́.
ẹ̀wà àwọn yàtọ̀ fún ẹ̀wà táwa àwa máa ń ṣe ẹ̀wà tó ọ̀dọ̀ wa gangan ó dàbí pé pẹ̀lú ti Yorùbá yìí kan náà ni tá a gan yẹn ló yàtọ̀ ṣùgbọ́n ẹ̀wà táwa máa ń ṣe ní ọ̀dọ̀ wa pẹ̀lú ti Yorùbá ẹ̀wà kan náà ni.
àwọn oúnjẹ mi wà tó yẹ pé àwọn tó wá láti Benin Republic ló mú oúnjẹ wá síbi ibi ìlọ ti ṣe oúnjẹ yẹn irú àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀kọ́ so àwọn ègùn ló máa ń ṣe ẹ̀kọ́ àwọn Yorùbá ẹ̀bà tó máa tẹ ẹ̀bà tó máa fi jẹ oúnjẹ ẹ̀bà wọn máa tẹ ẹ̀bà omi gbóná ló máa fi ṣe wọn máa gbómi yẹn kaná tó máa fi tẹ̀bà yẹn but àwọn ègùn wọn ní gbómi kaná omi yẹn bó ṣe wà just ordinary water wọn máa dà sí gàrí yẹn wọn máa fẹ̀ṣẹ̀ lò wọn máa jẹ bẹ́ẹ̀ wọn máa jẹ bẹ́ẹ̀.
If they play Fuji, I used to go there, go dance, because I don't stay here. It don't suit me. Those Yoruba, any Fuji we go, drink, smoke, and enjoyment. At long last, it don't fight. No Fuji way fight, no go end.
While mobility along West Africa comes with a lot of exchange of culture and skills, this movement is, however, impaired by access at the border point, particularly during movement along the Nigerian region.
I pass direct to the border because by that time, I have money for my pocket. So anything they will ask me, any border, just settlement. Anything where they ask you, when you settle, they will allow you to pass. So to pass to come Nigeria, no hard for me at all. I just pass direct because of I have money for my pocket.
Before me, I dey go, I need to enter straight car. I dey enter from here. Reach Metu. From Metu, I carry Seme. I reach Seme, I go carry Okada, cross, reach Cotonou. And from there, I go carry motor go.
Ara wa ńbẹ̀ tá bá sì ń lọ bá wọn máa mú wa lọ́nà máa fẹ́ jẹ́ pé yàtà jẹ́ ń bí owó ta ní lọ́wọ́ àbí owó ta kó ta fẹ́ lọ sí ìlú wọ́n máa ní pé ká kó owó yẹn wá wọ́n máa dì wá wọ́n máa fún wa ní wàrà gan-an ẹ̀sẹ̀ máa dẹ̀ ń bẹ̀ wọ́n a máa fún wọn lọ́wọ́ owó kankan a máa lọ.
wàhálà díẹ̀ wà ń bẹ̀ so àwọn kan wà ń bẹ̀ ó lè jẹ́ ọmọlúwàbí òun ní fún ẹ ní wàhálà tó pọ̀ bóyá o lè ní pé ok fún mi 200 fún ní 100 naira so kọjá o so ẹlòmíì lè wà ní pé mi ì fún ẹ o owó tí màá fi wọ mọ́tò ló wà lápò fún mi so ẹlòmíì lè wà á fún ẹ so àwọn míì wà owó tí ẹ tọ́jú ẹ sí inú àpò ó máa tọ́ ọ́ bá àpò ẹ ó máa kó owó ẹ jáde so gbogbo wàhálà yẹn ó bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀.
ẹ̀rí tí ẹ bá kò ní bọ́dà Benin tí ẹ bá fi wọ bọ́dà Nàìjíríà ilé ayé òsùn yín
ilé ayé mi tún ní bẹ́ẹ̀
sẹ́rí ibi tí ẹ bá gbé bẹ̀rẹ̀ checkpoint ń bẹ̀ báyìí tí ẹ bá rí checkpoint ń bí kí ẹ tó rìn débẹ̀ yẹn checkpoint mi ẹ̀ tún rí ẹ fẹ́ cap 20
85 lèmi kà níjẹta 85 lèmi kà.
You are aware that movement is enhanced and is allowed legally, but most of these movements are done illegally, informally, because of several reasons that we have adduced in other issues. Now, because the movements are largely informal, getting to settle and getting integrated formally in the host communities becomes very difficult, okay? Therefore, people opt for what they can do rather than what they should do. And so this leads to issues of menial works, indecent works like prostitution, like drug selling, like, mention them. These are the reasons. Now, that's not all, it also pushes them to do what I call illegal remittances that will come at the detriment of either of the economies. So if we move from Nigeria to the Benin Republic, for instance, and you work illegally, informally, to accumulate wealth, you may transfer this wealth back to your own base without paying due taxes and levies that should develop the community that produced the wealth for you. These are economic issues that force us to rethink on how to appraise and reappraise protocols in ECOWAS.
The first time I come Nigeria do okay. The first time I come Nigeria, I want buy flour. I buy them 30 naira for bag. But now flour don't reach 2 something. But before, everything do okay.
Ìgbàkígbà ni mo ń gbé rice kaná mo ń sọ ni. Owó wa ń gbà yẹn. Kò dàbí ní ìsìn.
Nigeria is worse. Àti jẹ àti mu ó ṣòro fún àwọn èèyàn. Kọ́tà ń ra ní 10 naira tẹ́lẹ̀, à ń ra ní 100 naira. Even let me say for my own, iṣẹ́ tí mo kọ́, material tí mo tá máa ń lò, tó fi jẹ́ pé material 250, we are buying it 1,000 naira. Kọ́bí sí Nigeria bàjẹ́ dé. It is soon, so ó pè mí kí n kó padà sí ìlú mi during this Nigeria.
The economic praxis and advantages for migrants are: most of the migrants remit up to 75% of their incomes back home to their families. It was also realized that over 50% of migrants have acquired land or property in their homeland and that they are only tenants in their host cities. Furthermore, in the next 10 years, over 50% of the male migrants intend to remain in their current city or move to another African city based on economic opportunities. And that migrant return usually occurs after considerable asset acquisition or when the migrant has reached 50 years of age. This project has some policy implications which could be considered for stakeholders and especially ECOWAS. Some of the implications are:
what we really need to do is to study how young people move, as we have done in this study, to study why they move, what they move with, and to develop youth-focused interventions that target the gaps that are inherent in how they move. What are the types of skills that are required for young people in the city? What are the types of housing that is required for young people in the city? We find that even as basic as our housing situation may be, very few cities or very few governments are thinking about one-bedroom apartments. But people that are moving into the city usually are moving by themselves. Some of them have their families back home and they are remitting funds. Others end up inviting their families over or marrying, in their places of destination and growing their families there. So we just need to understand the nuances and try to make the policies and the policy interventions.
Policy-wise, we came to the conclusion that two important aspects of economic development need to take place in West Africa. The first one is the development of the road infrastructure, which will crisscross the 15 states in ECOWAS to ensure that people are moved en masse to enhance mobility and migration. In addition to the development of road, we also came to the conclusion that the near absence of railway system in this sub-region is something that the heads of states need to look into. If we need to enhance trade, social interaction, economic interaction, in the sense that the rail system not only moves people en masse, but also moves produce. And that will help this sub-region to grow and then become more independent in terms of trade and economic development.
There are certain benefits that come with citizenship status in Republic of Benin, in Burkina Faso, in Côte d'Ivoire that we see, where citizens have access to free education, have access to certain services, and the data registration is quite strict in those parts. And in our own part of the world, it's not the same. It's important that we start to collect data and that our data is integrated across, our different agencies, and that people start to, undergo stricter checks and balances, stricter registration hurdles, so that we know exactly who is a Nigerian and who is not, who is a member of ECOWAS and who is not, and who deserves to be supported under relevant protocols, whether national or international, in this case, the West African protocol.
But above all, the development of these tools will enable us to improve on our skill set, create jobs for our teeming young population, and ensure that we keep them in this region instead of allowing them to move to other parts of the world. Over time, this will affect other regional economic groups in Africa, and Africa will become a developed continent.
What we've seen over the last 18 months that we've been studying how young people are moving across West Africa is a state of permanent temporality. We find that people come into their cities of their destination cities as young people in search of economic opportunities. In many cases, they make their way there, they make their fortunes there, but there's still, a strong sense of remittance. We find that people are sending money back home, people are going back home to get married, people are carrying their dead back home to be buried. We also find that even in places where they marry, they get married to citizens of these destination cities, they are still moving with their cultures. They are giving their children the names from home. They are speaking the languages from home, even in these new places. So they have hybrid children, but there's still a constant reminder that there's a place to go back to.
Plan mi ni pé ká wá owó ká kówó jọ ká fi ra ilẹ̀ sí ìlú mi. Nǹkan tí mo ń plan nìyẹn.
I go my village because of my children. I go come back. Come back. But every day say they don't do okay. I go sit down my own judge. They go come meet me.
Yes, I will go back because na Ghana they born me, na Ghana they train me. Na there my father, my family, everything dey. So the time I will go end my life for Ghana.
So bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe wà yín sí kí lẹ máa pera yín bẹ́ẹ̀ ni àbí Nàìjíríà ni?
Nàìjíríà ni. Torí àwọn Nàìjíríà.